Hello, once again, my name is Tim Grady. I'm from the Lawton, Oklahoma, Seventh-Day Adventist Church, USA. Um, Today, I would like to talk about how to keep legal in the atmosphere of real ID and uh, residency. What is legal residency? What is address residency? What is your current rights? Um, because there's going to be um, loss of those rights um, here shortly. Um, how a semi truck driver that does not have a home, that lives in a semi truck and has no physical address, how a van lifer has a without a physical address because the van moves around. There is not a street address or a physical address. How a homeless person maintains uh, a legal residency, and how you can, whether you're doing a flotilla, living on the water, how the great loopers do it, how the people are doing um, staying legal uh, within the Real ID Act. Um, that's the subject I'm trying to talk about today. So first of all, when you come to a boat and you're living a boat lifestyle, an example, the people that are doing the Great Loop, that is starting somewhere in the Great Lakes, going out through either the North Chicago or the Chicago uh, lock system into the Illinois and usually down the Mississippi. There are other ways you can get down to the Gulf, around Florida, and up around and back through one of the three lock systems to get you back into the Great Lakes. Whether you go up into Canada and come down, or you go across New York and into some of the rivers and up into the Great Lakes. That's what is called the Great Loop. Um, and it takes most people 2 to 3 years to do the Great Loop. If you're just pushing through, you can get it done in a year. Some people have gotten it done just totally pushing it through and not enjoying the trip. They can get it done in 6 months. But that's not the point of the video today. The point of the video today is how the van lifer, how the Great Looper, how people living a gypsy or mobile lifestyle keep legal today. One, if you are mobile, you have to have a place to receive mail. That is your legal address. It is not a physical address. It is your legal address. Then you have to establish a residency. Now, I'm just going to stick to the legal parts. I'm not going to get into boat registration and the other things, but I'm going to stick. And there's advantages when you're mobile. You can go to South Dakota. You can go to South Dakota, which is probably the best one to stay at because they give you 5-year driver's licenses. You don't have to come back for 5 years. There's a lot of tax advantages. South Dakota is probably the best. Florida, because they do not have income taxes, and I think the driver's licenses are for 2 years, but it's more expensive for insurance, and a whole bunch of other things. So you have to consider a lot of things when you do a mobile lifestyle. I don't care if it's a bus, it's a van life, it's doing the Great Loop or some sort of flotilla. Um, Now, van lifers that are working in different places, if you are working in a single job per year and you're not having two jobs in two different states, you have to register in the state that you are residing in. So, in other words, if you're doing a flotilla and you're somewhere in Louisiana or Texas or wherever, whatever state you are in, and you are working in that state, you have to register and have a legal address. Now, how to get a legal address? There are called sub post offices. They're mailing services that can give you a physical address. So you get a post office box at one of these places. A lot of them are mail forwarding. So in other words, if you're moving around the Great Loop, you have all your mail go there, and you tell them where to send it to. One of the other and they'll usually UPS it to a location for you, or they will FedEx it or whatever, get it to you. And they can take it out of the U.S. mail system and put it into the Federal Express or other package or mail services. So that is very important. Since you don't have a physical address, if you're living a flotilla or the Great Loop idea, you don't have a physical address because it's a boat. It can be moved. It's like a motorhome. A motorhome can move, or a bus can move, or a van can move. The gypsy style lifestyle. At this point, it is still legal. And if you're going to have, and remember that this video is all about keeping it legal. This goes along with the flee the cities. So it's a lot of why and what you can do. Everything we are supposed to, as Seventh-Day Adventists, when we flee the cities, we are to keep legal as long as possible. We are to render under Caesar what is Caesar's, right? Give God what is God's. So we must live under these laws. So the Real ID Act and all of the rest of this is how, because they're going to look at you as potentially illegal. Coming from former law enforcement, I know what the duty officer, I know what the prosecuting attorney, the district attorney, the state's attorney, I know what they're going to pressure the law enforcement to do. Okay. So you have to keep. There are two different types of homeless. There's the homeless that are drug addicted, whatever reason, put them on the street. Then there's the ones that are homeless by choice. I've met a lot of them as law enforcement. They're the ones that you can't tell are homeless. They'll keep their fingernails done. They'll keep their hair. They'll keep as clean, and they will dress nicer than most people. So they never draw the attention of the law enforcement. So those are the two classes of homeless. You have the mentally disturbed, the drug addicted, the dead enders, the the middle of the road that can get out of homelessness. And then you have the homeless by choice, that they're either living in their car or they're tent camping to save money for something else. I've known people that have lived homeless to go to school. This is where a lot of my out of the box thinking comes from, is meeting those types of people through my law enforcement career. And then there's just people that run around the country and the world backpacking. But back to the original reason for this video. You cannot run afoul of the Real ID Act. So if you're working somewhere, and that is one of the advantages to van life, mobile home life, or the flotilla, where you do the $1 sailboat, or you build a barge and build a cabin on a pontoon barge. But you have to keep legal. And the way you have to do it is you have to have a physical address. The mail services and post offices boxes can give you that legal location. Now, when you work, if you are working between jobs, and you are now moving from state to state, then you can move your mailbox and your legal residence to another state. Then you get to pick where you want it. But if you're only working in one job or one or two jobs within a city or an area, you have to be tied to that area. And that's the difference between a gypsy lifestyle, where you're actually moving from place to place, or just a flotilla or an anchorage type position, and you're only living in a non-traditional housing. Those are the two differences that you have to recognize. But you have to have a mailing address. That's important. And a lot of homeless cannot maintain that. That's why there are places like Salvation Army, some of the churches. Our church is helping a few people with physical addresses by using the church's address, post office box / church's location, as their legal address, and not having any physical home or any physical stability. That way they can receive services. But it's the same for someone that is it is the same for someone that is working but living in a non-traditional, potentially like a flotilla or a bus or a motorhome or whatever alternative, even if you're living in a tent, and moving from public land to public land, but you're still moving around a single job. That means you are very limited. You have to be in that state, preferably in the same county, borough area, legal area as your job. I'm going to do another video probably later today about transportation, e-bikes, and how you legally have that. Yes, you can get insurance for e-bikes, doing the scooters, and how to get to this minimal lifestyle and how to legally do this minimal lifestyle. So basically, you have to have a mailing address with a physical. So in other words, it cannot be a post office box. It has to be one of the mail services or that give you a physical address, and not a post. It is a post office box, but it is a physical address, and it will be like an apartment. Is the way it's considered. You have to have that legal address so you can get your real ID. And if you haven't gotten your real ID, go get it. Go get it now. You need it. Yeah, it's going to be part of the mark of the beast, but not really. The mark of the beast is going to be compliance with the Sunday law. But how they're going to track us is the real ID and all the rest of it. But yes, it is part of it, but it is not. You don't have a choice, and it is not part of, the final little time of trouble. It will be part of it, but that is something that right now the Bible and Ellen White definitely tells us we have to be legal at this point. So stay legal, be compliant until it's time not to be compliant. That's the point I'm making. You have to understand physical address, residency, legal residency, tax residency, and all the different types of those residencies. So I'm gonna recap this and wrap it up. You have to have a physical address residency. You have to have a legal residency within a state, county, borough, whatever part of the sub-state there is. You have to maintain those two. Even if you're moving around in a van life, then you have your tax residency and who you're going to pay taxes to. That's also very, very important. You don't run afoul of that, or you're going to get caught up really bad in the end times. You have to maintain at least those three. Then you have to maintain a work residency, whether you're in multiple states. And if you are working in multiple states, that opens up that you can now have that in a state of your choice. So if you go to a state that does not have income taxes, and there are 5 of those, you can do your own research and figure out who those 5 are. Or you can go to a very low income tax. And if you're working and that you have to figure out, and you have to maintain legal. Now, the top 3 states for the van lifers and the ones doing the Great Loop are Texas, Florida, and South Dakota. Probably South Dakota is probably number 1, because they have excellent tax, they have very low insurance, and so on. So again, you have to have a physical address to receive mail. And that can go to a mail post office box, but it has to have it cannot be the United States Post Office. It has to be one of the sub post office contractors. And many of them are mail forwarding system services where you call them and say, okay, I'm here, FedEx it to this address. You can send it to a box ups and you can receive it there. or another Walmart has had where you can have it sent there and you can receive it. You can receive it at UPS services, FedEx. You can receive it at any one of those. So if it's UPS, you can just go down to the UPS store or UPS shipping center and pick it up. You can do that at FedEx. You can do that at many others. But you have to maintain that legal contact by mail address. Also, you want your cell phone bill. And if you're on the Obama phone or the free phone, you have the statement sent there and forwarded to you, because that establishes between those two items that you are receiving mail there and you are receiving a utility bill, gives you the legal, meets the legal residency requirements. Another advantage of South Dakota, it takes overnight to become a legal resident of their state. So if you go there on Monday, Tuesday, you can go get your driver's license. You can go take care of your insurance. You can go take care of all your stuff in one of the little registration centers and be out of there in 48 hours and back on the road or wherever. They'll do your vehicle inspection. They'll do your whatever. And if you're on a boat, they will send you the tag number and the thing to put on your side of your boat to be home port. And it's very inexpensive registering your boat there than other places. So there's a lot more than what I'm covering here in it, because where you register is where your insurance is going to be, what your insurance is going to be, what your insurance costs, how many years. So if you're traveling and South Dakota has the advantage, you only have to go back there. But even in South Dakota now, you don't have to physically go back. You can do it by mail and get your new sticker for 5 years. You can renew your driver's license. They'll use your old picture and send you a new driver's license. And you don't even have to go back to South Dakota to do it. That's why it's kind of the number one for the van lifers. And Florida and Texas, again, have no income tax. So if you work somewhere else, you just pay the taxes where you go and you don't have to pay double taxes. Like if you're in New York City, you have to pay the New York City taxes. You have to pay the state taxes, and whatever state you work in, you have to pay their state and local taxes, income taxes and work taxes. You still have to pay your FICA taxes and all the other federal taxes. So all these things you have to consider. You have to plan ahead for if you're going to live the van life, Great Loop, or whatever gypsy lifestyle you are looking at. That's what it's all about, staying legal. Have to have that physical address, and now you can be totally, but then you have to worry about your tax address. And if you're working in multiple places, you really don't have to pay taxes because if you're working in more than one state a year, you won't, if you're in a state that does not have income tax and you file correctly, you won't have to pay income tax in those other states. But that's a complication you have to study for yourself, because where you are makes a big difference. But if you're only working in one state, you have to be tied to that state. You have to have a physical address in that state, which is going to be some mail. Then you have to have your tax and your in other words, you have to pay taxes somewhere, and you definitely have to pay the taxes to the federal government when you're working. So those are the two main points, but there are other residencies, there are other legal ramifications to everything you do when you are living an alternative lifestyle. Or I should say alternative living style. Living in a motorhome, living in a van, living in your car, living in a tent, living in a flotilla, living in a sailboat, living in a barge cabin, going up and down one of the waterways. These are the things you have got to consider. So with that said, I am going to call it here, out here.